So raising a family in Hawaii is hard. There are a lot of challenges, financial and otherwise, that sometimes make me as a parent wonder whether the sacrifices are worth it. However, despite these often difficult realities of life in Hawaii, raising a family here to me is worth it. And so that's what I want to talk about in this video. What it's really like to raise a family in Hawaii, some of the challenges of everyday life, and maybe some things that people don't often share or talk about online, but we as parents struggle with. And just to be clear, this isn't about a local parent ranting about how hard it is in Hawaii, but just more a commentary on life in Hawaii from one local's perspective. I had the added benefit of experiencing Hawaii as a kid and as an adult raising a family. I was born and raised here, graduated from high school here, and after going to college on the mainland, I moved back home and got married and started a family. And despite seeing how hard it can be to grow up in Hawaii and raise a family here firsthand, I'm still hoping that my two boys can grow up here just like I did. Hello from Hawaii. I think the internet often portrays Hawaii as the ideal playground for single or transient individuals, and it just might be. Social media has lots of videos and photos to support that lifestyle. But if you're planning on living here long-term, more specifically, you want to raise a family in Hawaii, things are a little different. So I want to highlight what I think are three major challenges that will affect parenting in Hawaii. And while on the surface, these things may be common knowledge and possess a universal application to, I'm sure, parenting all over the world, I want to dive more specifically into how it affects parenting in Hawaii. So first I want to talk about challenges of raising a family in a high cost of living place like Hawaii. In almost every budget category, Hawaii is the most expensive place in the country. It's where the median home prices are about $1 million and salaries are generally 30% lower than that on the mainland. Food, gas, electricity, all very expensive. But I think most people know that Hawaii is an expensive place to live. But what I don't think we often think about is how that high cost of living affects raising a family. And maybe if you're a surgeon or you get a free military housing stipend, it might not affect you as much. But if you're like most people who are paying a significant portion of their monthly income towards housing, you're gonna feel it. Because in the short term, things seem fine in Hawaii. Day to day, it might seem like things are just a little more expensive, but what's a few dollars more for strawberries or bread or that coffee? But when you start to look at the bills and credit card statements at the end of the month, you'll quickly realize that things can get a little tight. And as a parent, that financial pressure may weigh on you. Not earning enough money to keep up our lifestyle and the unwillingness to make budgetary cuts can make life in Hawaii harder than it has to be. I remember when our first son was born, I thought that a new baby would be pretty expensive. But when we actually went over our budget, it really didn't seem to have much of an impact. Other than diapers and wipes, our budget stayed relatively the same. And I was thinking, what's the big deal? I thought kids were supposed to be expensive. Then he started to eat regular food. And boy, did that increase our food budget each month. Extra fruits and vegetables, snacks, apple juice. Sometimes I think he eats better than I do. And it's worth it, but it does add up. And so I'm sure our food budget will now increase even more once our younger son starts to eat regular foods. And so along with that feeling of financial pressure as a parent, you may also start feeling that squeeze of time and energy. And maybe all parents face that, but let me talk specifically about how it feels in Hawaii. Because we're talking about living and working here with kids. Maybe if you're single or you don't have kids, you can burn up all your extra time and energy on work. And you can sleep in on the weekends and you can stay out late to unwind. And I think in a lot of ways, you can always outwork your financial situation by getting multiple jobs and just working more to earn more money. But when you have kids, I'm slowly learning as a dad of a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, all of your time and energy can't be given to work, at least if you want to be there for your kids and your family when you get home. After a long day at work, plus an hour plus in traffic on the H1, as a parent, you got to step into that house with all the energy required of you to be attentive and loving to your kids. And it's hard. They don't know what you've been through all day. They don't know all the things that you do, and all they see is you step through the door and they want you to be mom or dad. And there are days when I just want to sit on the couch in a quiet living room and do nothing but watch TV. But instead, you go home and you just got to do it. And as a parent, you'd be surprised how quickly your schedule will fill up on the weekends. You got soccer, gymnastics, dance class, there's practices, games, and recitals. And in Hawaii, it seems like the business of life will catch up to you because I think unlike in other places, there's no cold weather season where you're forced to stay inside. The weather is good year round, meaning that you can pack the entire year with seemingly endless activities, which is both a good thing and a challenging thing. And all that parenting busyness has to fit not in the backdrop of a tranquil island lifestyle like when you're on vacation, but in a busy life where most people are working long hours and stuck in traffic. And those types of sacrifices are hard as a parent, necessary for many, but nonetheless challenging. All right, now as a parent, there's a lot of pressure on where you send your kid to school in Hawaii because where you go to school is a big deal here. Just ask any local who has graduated from high school here, McKinley High School. Where you graduate from high school matters a lot. And it matters because it says a lot about who you are. Oh, you went private school? Wow, you must be smart and successful. Your parents must make plenty of money. Oh, you went to that public school? Oh, well, the rumblings of school admissions among parents typically starts early. At least that's what I'm finding. My oldest son just started preschool and already parents are planning strategies to get their kids into the top private schools. And for many families, private school is the only way to go. Either because they themselves went to private school or more often, it's because they have heard the horror stories of how bad Hawaii public school is. And when you have public school teachers and admins sending their own kids to private school, you might start thinking something is up. However, private school comes at a cost. Tuition for the big three private schools on Oahu, Punahou, Iolani, and Midpac is nearing $30,000 a year. Even with financial aid, you'll be paying more for them to attend private school per year than if you were to send them to the University of Hawaii. Of course, you can always ask grandma, grandpa to help pay, assuming they can afford it, which many people do. There's this underlying belief in Hawaii that private school is so superior to public school. And as a parent, you'll either buy into that or you won't. And maybe later down the road, after your kid graduates high school, you can look back from a clearer perspective. But in that season of raising kids, it's hard not to think about it that way. But to all those parents out there, it's okay if you send your kid to public school. Maybe that's not said enough here. Maybe that should be the DOE's new slogan. It's okay to send your kid to public school. Because I just don't buy into this mentality that public school is down here and private school is somehow up here. At least to the degree that some people take it. I mean, just this past year, I recall hearing about a student who graduated from Waipahu High School, which isn't exactly one of the best high schools on Oahu, with a 5.0 GPA. Didn't even know that was possible. And that student is headed to Harvard. And even in my graduating class at McKinley High School, again, not one of the better high schools, pretty good, but it's not really one of the top ones. I had several classmates go off to amazing colleges and do amazing things. And sure, public school can be rough at times. I mean, there are fights and bad things happen, but there's also a lot of amazing things that I believe kids can only learn at public school here in Hawaii. You'll probably notice slowly in Hawaii that there are limited opportunities pretty much across the board. Hawaii just doesn't have the variety of experiences and resources that the mainland has. And I'm not just talking about opportunities in athletics or specialty programs. I'm more so talking about limited access to experience other cultures and places, which in turn affects how these kids will view the world. And so overcoming the limited opportunities is just another challenge in parenting in Hawaii, and you're gonna have to be prepared for that. Because as a parent, I think it will be part of my responsibility to take my boys out of Hawaii from time to time so they don't get so culturally isolated. And this cultural isolation is kind of tricky because it creates a very strong tie for locals to the local culture, which I think is very great. It's why people are so proud to say that they are from Hawaii. However, because the roots are so deep and entrenched and we aren't often exposed to different cultures outside of the Hawaii culture, I think that many people develop this island mentality. That, to put it crudely, Hawaii is the center of the universe and that nothing outside really matters. And maybe this doesn't happen to everyone, but I sure felt it growing up. I remember how strange it was when I first went to Colorado. Only Asian in the class, only Asian on my dorm floor. And I'm walking around campus just trying to find another Asian face. And I'm like, is that person Asian? And it's like, oh no, they're Hispanic. Nobody looks like me. And for someone who grew up in Hawaii, where Asians make up a significant portion of the population, it was tough to adjust to that when you look different from most people. But I survived the culture shock, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to see for myself that Hawaii wasn't the center of the universe. There's so much more out there. But it took me moving away to see that. And I think a lot of kids who grew up here subconsciously think that, or perhaps worse, they don't even think about it at all. Like, how exactly does Hawaii fit in with the rest of the world? Because sometimes I think it's like that story, Horton Hears a Who by Dr. Seuss, where the Whos are on this dust particle on top of a flower, and they're oblivious to the fact that their world is so small compared to the bigger world at large. And again, this is more than just limited opportunities for its own sake. Like, Soljang, we don't have IKEA or Trader Joe's. I'm talking more about how the cultural isolation of Hawaii impacts our kids and how they think about the world and themselves. And so broadening our kids' perspective is something that I'm committed to doing. Going to places like Japan for my kids is very important. Not just to spend time with family, but also to see and experience that, yeah, we're part of a greater world. Now, it may sound like raising kids in Hawaii is tough and horrible, and oh my gosh, why would anybody do it? And it is tough. There are downsides, especially if you don't know anyone in Hawaii. However, I think the saving grace that makes it all worth it in the end, after the beach fun wears off and the beautiful weather doesn't seem as beautiful, is that closeness with family. Because to me, if you have family in Hawaii, that closeness, that real tight ohana, I consider you rich. Maybe not in a financial sense, but intrinsically, I'd say that you're very wealthy. And if you choose to raise your kids in Hawaii, I believe that your family will be close. The ohana or sense of ohana is infused in the local culture, and if you grow up in Hawaii, that's something that'll just be with you, and it's something that not a lot of other places really have. And I acknowledge that that closeness of family in Hawaii may be a result of survival tactics, right? Like, families are close because they have to be. It's a small island, things are expensive, you gotta pool your resources. It makes more sense to help each other for the betterment of the entire family. I mean, Hawaii has the highest percentage of multifamily households in the country at nearly 16%. But family closeness is also cultural, so you'll see it among different ethnic groups and income levels. You'll meet people and be absorbed into their family, even if you're not related. I mean, we have hanai and extended family. And these are people that can help watch your kids when they drive you crazy or you just need a break. And trust me, it's nice to have that extra family help. When you grow up in Hawaii amongst your cousins, aunties, and uncles, it's so different from when you're on the mainland. I mean, I have cousins from the mainland, and we grew up seeing each other maybe like once a year, but that closeness was never there. Not like the cousins that I grew up here with and we saw them every weekend. And just to illustrate that family closeness, I want to mention my grandparents. They helped to watch me and my brother because my parents had to work. So my parents would drop me and my brother off at 5:30 a.m. and I'd spend the whole day at grandma's house. Every summer and school break, there I was. And even all these years later, I can just see it in my mind. I'd walk through that front patio door and I'd put my slippers on the stairs and walk in, and there's my grandma preparing breakfast, bacon, eggs, spam, Vienna sausage, whatever she was making that morning. My grandpa sitting across drinking coffee and reading his newspaper, and then I'd come to the table, grab my rice, grab my meat, and start watching cartoons. And I still think about them every single day. And when they died, it was really hard. And I'm so lucky to have spent so much time with them. They would discipline us and love us, spoil us a lot. And maybe that closeness exists with other grandparents in other parts of the country, but it seems to be so common here in Hawaii, that closeness of grandparents and grandkids. It's more than just free babysitting and chauffeur services. It's generational love that gets passed on. And so it's that level of closeness that you can expect when raising a family here, assuming those relationships are cultivated and maintained. So despite all the challenges of raising a family in Hawaii, that closeness of family makes it worth it. And I know that if I were to move to the mainland and raise my kids there, sure, our life would be easier financially. We get by, probably buy a big house, but my boys wouldn't get to know my parents and my brother and my other cousins and their kids. They wouldn't get to play with their second cousins on the weekends and do family parties. Recently, we went to Waikiki to spend 4th of July with some family, and it was so great to watch my boys play with my cousin's kids. And I'm happy for my boys as well as my wife. She's not from Hawaii, and so she didn't grow up with that kind of family closeness with extended family like most of us local people do. So it's hard to make it work in Hawaii sometimes. There's just a lot of things going on, but the love of family really does make it worth it. And I'm glad that my family is close, and it's one of the things that I hope to pass on to my boys as they grow older. I mean, really, to me, it's probably the most valuable thing that I can pass on, more than any inheritance of money or property. And that's saying a lot considering what the home prices are probably projected to be in the future. You know, and these family values that we share and pass on in Hawaii don't often make great social media posts. You know, they aren't flashy, and to some extent they can even be faked through poses and photos. But when you have that family closeness and you truly know it, I think it's one of the best feelings in the world. So thanks for watching, and aloha.
Hello.